Pokemon, the largest media franchise in history, has a strong appreciation for its roots, specifically the Kanto region and the original 151 Pokemon. Of course, while whether or not this is simply nostalgia baiting is up to debate, the fact stands that the original Pokemon games, Red and Green, have been remade twice, once in 2004 and again in 2018. And with the remakes of Diamond and Pearl just on the horizon, I want to look back at the two remakes of the very first Pokemon game. Pokemon Red version and Pokemon Green version were released in Japan on February 27, 1996. A horribly buggy mess, Game Freak released a revised edition of the game called Pokemon Blue version on October 15, 1996, which would be the basis for the Western release of Pokemon Red version and Pokemon Blue version. For this video, I played through Pokemon Blue, Leaf Green, and Let's Go Pikachu, solely for the fact that the version-exclusive Pokemon in those games include Sandshrew and Sandslash, my two favorite Pokemon. Considering both versions of any given Pokemon game are near identical, I wanted to play the ones where I could use Sandshrew. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The original Pokemon games, when viewed through the lens of a traditional RPG, are incredible. The region of Kanto is vast and expansive, taking you through forests, mountains, scenic fields, and oceans. Naturalistic routes juxtapose dense metropolitan areas, serving as a terrific backdrop for the mission given to the player at the start of the game. Said mission is just vague enough to give the sense of embarking on an epic journey, and the mute player character allows players to project themselves onto the role of a budding Pokemon trainer. From the start of the game, you're told to take on the 8 Pokemon gyms, then the Elite Four, in order to become the league champion. You're also told to catch every type of Pokemon, which is echoed by the box art. These missions work well together and encapsulate the two main mechanics of the game perfectly: exploring the land to discover and catch these fun creatures, and training said creatures to become powerful. And by having the Pokemon League be just west of the second city in the game, Viridian City, you have an immediate look into just where your journey will take you. What all this creates is a fun and exciting reason to explore every nook and cranny of Kanto, as there could be a rare Pokemon around every corner. And even if you don't find anything, you'll still be making your team stronger for when you take on the next gym. The concept of collecting and trading Pokemon is so incredibly fleshed out, deceptively so for being the first in the series. Obviously, you have the version-exclusive Pokemon that can only be caught in either Red or Blue version, which incentivizes trading, but you also have the starter Pokemon, the Dome and Helix fossils, Eevee, and Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. You can only pick one of the 3 starters, the Dome or Helix fossil, Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee, and evolve Eevee into only one of 3 evolutions. These non-exclusive choices create more reasons to trade among your friends. That's not to mention that Haunter, Graveler, Machoke, and Kadabra only evolve after being traded, and there are in-game trades that can be made with NPCs. In fact, in Red and Blue, the only way to obtain Farfetch'd, Jinx, Lickitung, and Mr. Mime is through these in-game trades. While that's super neat and all, you can't rename traded Pokemon. This means that in Red and Blue, every Mr. Mime will be named Marcel, every Lickitung Mark, every Jinx Lola, and every Farfetch'd Dux, which is kinda lame. Like Dux didn't fit with the naming convention of my team! By the way, let me know in the comments what you think the naming conventions of my teams were. And then there's the mythic Pokemon Mew that could only be obtained by going to in-person events. Game Freak really covered all their bases when figuring out how to incentivize trading and collecting Pokemon. While the trading aspect of Pokemon created a truly social experience, the in-game lore and repercussions of Pokemon are equally fleshed out. Most Pokemon evolve once they reach a certain level, but a few only evolve after being exposed to certain stones. While Pokemon naturally learn new moves as they grow stronger, technical machines and hidden machines allow them to learn new moves, the latter of which allow the player to interact with the outside world in unique ways. Much like real-life big game hunting, there's a safari zone where Pokemon can be caught for sport. You can fish for Pokemon, win the best prizes from a game corner, not unlike winning a goldfish at the state fair, straight up buy a Magikarp, and leave Pokemon at a daycare and pay someone to watch them as they grow stronger. Pokemon are used in warfare and can die, as can be seen from the Pokemon Tower. Eevee's genetic code is irregular, allowing it to evolve into Vaporeon, Flareon, and Jolteon. Ditto is obviously the failed clone of Mew, while Mewtwo is the successful clone of Mew. Porygon is the first digital Pokemon. Voltorb and Electrode are the Pokemon equivalent of Mimics, taking the appearance of Pokeballs. Ancient fossil Pokemon can be revived on Cinnabar Island. The legendary bird Pokemon can be fought, but not rematched, so you'd better catch them on your first try. It's also well thought out and executed stupendously. There's a reason Pokemon became the largest media franchise in history. Now, while the game never explicitly tells you what to do, it's still pretty linear. You have to beat Misty and collect the cut HM before you go to Celadon, which is where you need to buy a drink so the guards let you into Saffron. Then you need to get the Sylph Scope, then save Mr. Fuji so you can get the Polka Flute, which opens up the rest of the region. In fact, the only time the game really throws you to the wolves is when you have to find Oak's 8 on Route 2 to get the HM for Flash, as Rock Tunnel is pretty much impossible to get through without it. And even though none of the story beats are all that unique, awakening a sleeping Goliath, finding someone's lost MacGuffin, defeating the mob, because exploring Kanto is just so enjoyable, it doesn't matter all that much. The game nudges you in the right direction, but never tells you where to go, so it still feels like you're discovering the region on your own. But unfortunately, for every thematic and stylistic thing the game does well, there's a technical limitation that truly impedes on the player's enjoyment of it. To call Pokemon Red and Blue broken games held together with nothing more than duct tape and a prayer is nothing new, despite how obviously true it is. A quick search on YouTube shows hundreds of videos discussing every glitch imaginable. I've nothing new to add to this discourse, but these glitches impede on even normal gameplay, as many glitches, such as the 1 in 256 miss glitch, happen with 0 player input. I will say, however, that I used the missing no glitch to dupe Master Balls and Rare Candy so I could easily catch Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Mewtwo and avoid grinding once I hit Cinnabar Island. Visually, the game isn't all that appealing, and some of the Pokemon sprites leave a lot to be desired, even though I generally prefer the older, chubbier designs. Like, Fat Pikachu is a gift from God himself. And yeah, I get that it was the original Game Boy, but games like Link's Awakening and Mario Land 2 show that Game Boy games didn't have to be ugly. The largest technical problem Red and Blue face, however, is that the combat is pretty awful. It's very bare bones when compared to the combat of later generations, but even without using the lens of retrospection, the combat has several notable flaws. First of all, there's no in-game data for what moves actually do. There's no power, accuracy, or even a description of what the moves do, so you'll really have no idea if you're giving your Pokemon a better move or not. The special stat not only determines the strength of special attacks, but also the resistance to special attacks, resulting in Pokemon with a high special, like Psychic types, to be needlessly strong. Some stat-changing moves, such as Focus Energy, lower the critical hit rate instead of increasing it. Critical hits are determined by speed to the point where my Sandslash always got a critical hit with Slash. It's also just kinda boring, because there's no abilities, held items, natures, double battles, weather effects, dark steel or fairy types, no special attack, special defense split, and no physical special split. Every battle just comes down to mashing the A button on your strongest attack. Why use strategy when your team is just beastly and hits harder than your opponent? Is that the mantra of every 10-year-old who plays Pokemon for the first time? Absolutely. But here it works like a charm. And that's not even mentioning the fact that the AI is just dumb, to say the very least. But I guess that is one last thing that Red and Blue have in common with classic RPGs: boring combat systems. And before everyone has a hissy fit in the comment section, by classic RPG, I'm not talking about like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI. I'm talking like Final Fantasy I, Dragon Quest I, Dragon Quest II, all those games where you just kind of mash attack and you win. Also, you have to grind for like 20 hours, but that's not the point. So despite having an incredibly well thought out world and really neat gimmicks to make Pokemon a truly social experience, Red and Blue suffer in nearly every technical aspect, and were well worthy of a remake, if only because you couldn't bring your Generation 1 Pokemon into Generation 3, which is where Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green come into play. Released in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance, these games did a stand-up job of remedying the blemishes from Red and Blue. Playing through this game is truly a treat. If nothing else, the differences in combat between Generation 1 and Generation 3 make Fire Red and Leaf Green 100 times more bearable to play. With that being said, I did use the fast forward feature on my Microsoft Game Boy Advance with reckless abandon because grinding through trainer battles is annoying regardless of how polished the combat is. Of course, this raises the question of whether or not Pokemon combat is all that good in general. I don't know if it is, and while I acknowledge that there is a large conversation to be had on the subject, that can be held on a different day. Right now, all that matters when discussing the combat in Fire Red and Leaf Green is that it is leagues better than in Red and Blue. Fire Red and Leaf Green are also incredibly faithful to their source material. Plot-wise, which is an admittedly strong word to use for a Pokemon game, the only differences are that the guards blocking Saffron City are given tea, which is a key item, and not just any old drink from the vending machine, and that Cerulean Cave can't be entered until completing the post-game events on the Sevi Islands. In Red and Blue, you could enter it right after beating the Elite Four. Due to how untouched most of the game is, except for changing the traded Farfetched's nickname from Ducks to Shading, which makes me weep, the sense sense of adventure that Red and Blue had isn't lost. Despite still being kinda linear, nobody tells you where to go or what to do, allowing you to discover Kanto all on your own, just as it was in Red and Blue. And before we get into the additional content and general oddities that Fire Red and Leaf Green have, here are some rapid-fire quality of life improvements that make the games much more enjoyable to play. Pokemon have natures, abilities, and both a special attack and special defense stat. These, combined with the Dark and Steel types and held items, make the combat a little more involved. You can actually see what the moves you're teaching your Pokemon do, which is just pretty handy information to have. You don't have to manually switch Pokemon boxes, meaning so long as there's room in your PC, you can catch Pokemon. Your bag now has different pockets, one for general items, one for key items, and one for Pokeballs. While your bag is limited to 30 different general items, you don't need to keep depositing key items into your PC like you did in Red and Blue. Running shoes let you run faster than you could in Red and Blue. Really great addition. By simply pressing A when next to a tree, rock, or body of water, you're prompted to use an HM. In Red and Blue, you had to manually go into your Pokemon menu in order to use them. The only two that still work this way are Fly and Flash. The newly added Versus Seeker allows you to remax trainers, allowing you to not only level up more easily but acquire more money, which was limited in Red and Blue, unless you had a Meowth that new payday. The main additional content that Fire Red and Leaf Green add are the Sevi Islands. These can first be reached after defeating Blaine and serve mostly as post-game content for once you defeat the Elite Four. One island houses Mount Ember, which is where Moltres was moved to in these games. 2 Island houses Cape Brink, where you can teach your starter Pokemon a super powerful move. 3 Island houses Berry Forest, where you'll find Lost Stone during the first side quest in the Sevi Islands. 4 Island houses a second Pokemon daycare that can take care of 2 Pokemon at a time, and Icefall Cave. 5 Island houses the Lost Cave in the Rocket Warehouse. 6 Island houses the Altering Cave and Dotted Hole. And 7 Island houses the Trainer Tower and Tanabe Ruins. The paths, while none all that long, are charming, and the overarching narrative simply serves as a backdrop to explore the islands. And thematically, the inclusion of these islands serves as the perfect additional content, as any new routes or towns in the continental Kanto region would have ruined the authenticity of it. But by adding in these new southern isles, Kanto is left as it was in 96, but there's still more stuff to do. Throughout the Sevi Islands, you get to catch Pokemon typically found in the Johto region, which is just really cool. And after you defeat Team Rocket at their warehouse, one of the legendary beasts starts roaming Kanto. There's no indication that they have started doing so, which is kind of frustrating in current year, but would have been so cool to come across back in 2004. Unless they used Roar and disappeared forever, that is. And while Red and Blue had the in-person Mew event, which simply transferred Mew to your save file, Fire Red and Leaf Green have actual in-game events that trigger after going to special in-person events. By acquiring the Mystic Ticket, you can go to Naval Rock, where you get to catch both Ho-Oh and Lugia. And by acquiring the Aurora Ticket, you get to go to Birth Island, where, after completing this frustrating puzzle, you get to catch Deoxys. What makes these events so fascinating, at least to me, is their exclusivity. The Mystic Ticket and Aurora Ticket were given out in the United States during only a handful of events in 2005. To get these running on my Microsoft Game Boy Advance, it took me the better part of an hour. But as much as it frustrated me, it also enthralled me, as looking at old forum posts and YouTube videos added to the mystique of the events. These are rare events that only the most dedicated of Pokemon players would have ever experienced, and to experience them as legitimately as possible on an emulator made me giddy. I felt like a kid on the playground again, uncritically believing that Waluigi was in fact in Super Mario 64 DS. On the subject of rare Pokemon events, Altering Cave, colloquially known as Zubat Cave, would have had Altering Wild Pokemon based on what mystery gift was received at a Nintendo Wonder Spot. However, no events ever made use of this feature, meaning that only Zubats have ever been legitimately caught from this cave. Running about Altering Cave, seeing nothing but Zubats, filled me with a similar intrigue that trying to obtain the Mystic Ticket and Aurora Ticket did. Seeing this essentially disused location still accessible makes me think of all the kids who must have spent countless hours in the Altering Cave trying to figure out what the hell its point was. The Trainer Tower is similar to the battle towers found in many other Pokemon games. Here you can go through 8 consecutive floors of battles. These can either be single battles, double battles, knockout battles, where you have to beat 3 trainers in a row, or mixed battles, where each floor is randomly one of the aforementioned battle types. You get to use items whenever you want, and can even retreat back to Nurse Scroy to heal your party. If you beat all 8 floors within a time limit, you get a rare evolutionary item. I really kinda dislike this battle variant, as I think the traditional battle tower rule set is far more enjoyable. The main takeaway was me fighting a shiny Espeon, and that the trainers often speak in divine verse. My big brother is really awesome. I am really awesome. It's sleep time for children. I won, but I am not hot. I am giddy with lovey-dovey joy. You better not win. The HMs for Rock Smash and Waterfall were added as well. These are obtained in the Sevi Islands and are cool, I guess. I mean, HMs kinda suck to begin with, but it's cool that Fire Red and Leaf Green use 2 more than Red and Blue, even if Rock Smash is functionally just cut that spawns Geodudes. And while the Pokemon Daycare on 4 Island allows you to breed Pokemon, it inadvertently detracts from the choice you make when choosing Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan and what to evolve your Eevee into. Because you can breed a Ditto with Eevee, its evolutions, Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan, you'll be able to access an infinite amount of Eevees and Tyrogues, meaning regardless of your decisions, you'll be able to acquire all 5 Pokemon, and Hitmontop for what it's worth. However, the benefit to the Daycare is that you can breed the trade-exclusive Pokemon, so that you can have a Farfetch'd that isn't named Sheding. Now to talk about the general oddities with Fire Red and Leaf Green. The thing I found oddest about these games is just how much they hold the player's hand, at least in the beginning. For the past few years, a common talking point with newer Pokemon games has been discussing their difficulty. Of course, whether this discussion stems from the fact that being an adult gives an inherent advantage to the player when playing a baby game is ambiguous, but that's neither here nor there. And while Fire Red and Leaf Green aren't too easy, they are serious offenders when it comes to babying the player. During the first rival fight, Oak explains how combat works. However, that fight already works as a good tutorial, as you can lose it with no repercussions and you get to see how both attacking and status moves work. One of the new key items given to the player early on is the Teachy TV. This device lets the player watch the Pokedude show, starring the Pokedude, who teaches the player how to battle, what status conditions are, what type matchups are, how to catch Pokemon, what TMs are, and how to register items. They are long tutorials to boot, and with how neurotic they are, anyone who bothers watching these would have likely figured out the mechanics on their own. Finally, press L or R and you're taken to the help system, a veritable encyclopedia of Pokemon information, ranging from what to do, to type matchups, to what terms mean. It's a wildly over-the-top, unnecessary addition that I don't understand. No other game in the series up to that point had anything of the sort, and it honestly just seems like an insult to the player's intelligence. The simplicity of most of these questions is absurd, as most of the answers should be figured out naturally by the time the player reaches Brock, which is where I consider the game's tutorial to come to an end. Sincerely, the only information of merit in the help system is type matchups, but the way the information is presented is obtuse at best. The other information that would be beneficial to the player that isn't presented is what move types use what stat. Prior to Generation 4, every move type either used a Pokemon's physical attack or special attack. This would have been really helpful information to have in order to teach your Pokemon moves that work well with their stats. For example, you, counterintuitively, shouldn't teach your Hitmonchan, the punching Pokemon, Ice Punch, Fire Punch, or Thunder Punch, because in these games, all of them use the special attack, and Hitmonchan has a garbage special attack. So even with a wealth of information that the help system provides, the player won't know this, in my opinion, crucial piece of information. Added to this, the help system doesn't give any tips on how to progress in the game. As I said earlier, due to the faithfulness of these remakes, some thought is still required on how to progress. You still need to find the HM for Flash on Route 2, obtain the T in Celadon, get the Sylph Scope from the Team Rocket hideout, and get the Gold Teeth and the HM for Surf in the Safari Zone. And if the game doesn't think the player can figure out how to play it in the first place, which is a fair assumption given the breadth of the help system, how does it expect the player to accomplish everything I just listed on their own? You either get to hold the player's hand the entire way, or provide them with just enough sticks and carrots to get through the game on their own. You can't just overwhelm them with tips and advice that aren't all that helpful and then expect them to figure out everything on their own. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that the game would be better without the help system. Due to it always being one button away, this could make a player become codependent with it, resulting in them getting frustrated when the game tells them everything under the sun except how to get through Rock Tunnel. Is this a crazy claim I'm making over a system that no one likes, let alone thinks of in the first place? Yeah. Will I die on this hill? Absolutely. The one handholdy thing I like in these games is the resume feature. Whenever you boot up your save file, you're shown the last 4 things of significance that you accomplished. It's a handy way to remember where you left off and to rewatch an entire cutscene for whatever reason. This only ever happened once and really made me question how this system even works in the first place. Moving on, a lesser oddity is the fame checker. This device lets you read up on all the juicy gossip you've learned about famous and important people in Kanto, like Professor Oak, Mr. Fuji, Bill, and Blue's sister Daisy. The leveling curve is still pretty whack. In Red and Blue, Giovanni's strongest Pokemon at the Viridian Gym is level 50. Your rival's strongest Pokemon during the champion battle is level 65. Between these 2 battles, there are 16 trainers to fight. You will not be at the proper level when you get to the Pokemon League, guaranteed. Unless you cheat like I did. Fire Red and Leaf Green fixed this problem, but not really. For the champion battle, each of your rival's Pokemon are 2 levels lower. You get to go to 1, 2, and 3 Island before taking on the Elite Four in order to train as well. Even still, I was horrendously underleveled when I fought my rival despite fighting most of the trainers in Kanto. I only won through sheer willpower and epicness, and swag, and baseness. Based in Charizard pilled? The reason I point this out is because clearly Game Freak realized that the level curve was way too steep between Giovanni and the champion, but the way the game fixed the problem still resulted in there being not enough trainers to get your Pokemon to the correct level. Either that or I'm completely stupid and couldn't figure out how to play baby game. Finally, due to the TMs in Fire Red and Leaf Green being assigned different moves than in Red and Blue, there are 15 move tutors that can teach your Pokemon the moves that used to be TMs. I think this is really neat. The last thing I want to say is that Fire Red and Leaf Green feel like proper Pokemon games, while Red and Blue simply feel like games with Pokemon in them. Let me elaborate. Red and Blue drew heavily from classic RPGs, with the twist being that you fight and trade with these cute little monsters. They set the groundwork, sure, but it wasn't until the advancements of Gold and Silver and Ruby and Sapphire that you get the formula of what can be recognized as a modern Pokemon game. So by the time you get to Fire Red and Leaf Green, the game looks, sounds, and plays like a Pokemon game, maybe not should, but would for more than a decade. Fire Red and Leaf Green feel like Pokemon games because they don't do anything new. They are perfectly content to use the tried and true formula without changing anything. Red and Blue don't feel like Pokemon games, not just because of their archaic nature, but because they are, or at least were, novel and inventive. 2 terms that most definitely don't describe Pokemon in 2021. Overall, while they are, at least in my opinion, 2 of the more forgettable Pokemon games, Fire Red and Leaf Green are phenomenal remakes of Red and Blue. The improvements to the Pokemon formula make them 10 times as enjoyable to play as the original games. However, it's worth noting that these improvements were pioneered by Gold and Silver and Ruby and Sapphire, and that Fire Red and Leaf Green only succeed because they stand on the shoulders of those games. They are as close to a perfect remake as can be reasonably expected, as they improve every technical aspect of the original games, add the Sevi Islands, and don't remove any of the content or charm of the originals. They succeed at what a video game remake should strive to do: reimagine the original game with modern technology while not altering its spirit and adding on where necessary and appropriate. They are, if nothing else, 100% pure Pokemon, 2 of the most authentically Pokemon games in the series. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, on the other hand, are some of the least Pokemon games in the series. They're mainline entries with the feel of a spin-off game. The biggest change these games make is how wild Pokemon are encountered. Instead of fighting wild Pokemon with your own Pokemon, you catch them in the same manner as you do in Pokemon Go. These Pokemon drop candies that can be used to power up the stats of your own Pokemon. The candies can also be obtained by sending Pokemon to Professor Oak. The only wild Pokemon that still have to be fought are the Snorlaxes on routes 12 and 16, the Electrodes in the Power Plant, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and Mewtwo. After defeating them, you get to catch them like normal. For what it's worth, I really love catching Pokemon in these games. It's so much more interactive and engaging than catching Pokemon in literally any other Pokemon game. The candy mechanic makes me happy as well, as it allows you to make your Pokemon obscenely strong. It got to the point where I never even bothered constructing a team. I just pumped my Sandslash full of candy and tore through the game. Even cooler, rare Pokemon, like the starter Pokemon Chansey, Mr. Mime, Jinx, Lickitung, Hitmonlee, Eevee, and Snorlax randomly spawn in certain areas. I like this a lot, as it makes sense that there exists more than one Bulbasaur in the entire Kanto region. And it's cool that there are Pokemon that just very rarely spawn in certain areas. it makes sense. I also really love how you get to see the Pokemon in the overworld, so that you don't run into an encounter every 3 steps. It's a logical addition, as these rats and birds wouldn't just be standing in one square of grass. I mean, they wouldn't just pop out of the ground either, but you know what I'm getting at. This changes the emphasis of the game from trading Pokemon to collecting Pokemon. No longer do you need to decide between the Dome Fossil or the Helix Fossil, as you can get an infinite amount of fossils from the Cerulean Cave. You don't need to decide between Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan because you can catch both in Victory Road. You can catch as many Eevees as you wish, so you don't need to decide what to evolve it into. There aren't even any in-game trades, except to get the Alolan versions of Kanto Pokemon. With all this being said, it's fair to say that the point of the game was to return Pokemon to its gotta catch 'em all roots. In order to even enter the Fuchsia City Gym, you have to catch at least 50 species of Pokemon. So why, then, are there still version-exclusive Pokemon? And why do Machoke, Graveler, Haunter, and Kadabra still need to be traded in order to evolve? These games don't emphasize or incentivize trading, so why do you still need to trade to complete the Pokedex? Version and trade-exclusive Pokemon already seem like an outdated concept, but these games in particular make them seem extremely archaic. Moving on, the combat in these games is somehow more dreary than in most modern Pokemon games. A myriad of problems makes it so much of a slog that I did everything in my power to avoid trainer fights, as there's no speed up button on my Nintendo Switch. The two most notable changes to the combat that these games make is the lack of both abilities and held items, making it much more akin to the combat of Red and Blue. But without these mechanics, combat becomes far less interesting. Every trainer's Pokemon also aren't as strong as they should be, given the fact that you can make your Pokemon as strong as you want. And because they aren't that strong, you don't get that much experience from them. Instead, the way to get experience in this game is by catching Pokemon. If you get a fat catch combo going, you'll be rolling in the experience. Or you can just catch a few Chanseys and be set for life. So the only reason to fight trainers is to get money. But because everyone gives you so much money, and Pokeballs are cheaper in this game than in any other game, you get enough just by fighting the required trainers. It's such a shame that fighting trainers is not only tedious but pointless, because it's so much fun making a super strong Pokemon, but it never felt satisfying to use them on random trainers. And at any time you can bring in a second player to make every non-double battle a 2-on-1. I truly don't understand that one. Finally, I just want to circle back to the lack of abilities and held items. Clearly the point of these games is to introduce a new generation of children to Pokemon. I view it as a transition from Pokemon Go to a more traditional Pokemon game, with the intent, I assume, to make a new generation of fans that will buy future entries. So why then are there no abilities and held items? If the point of these games is to introduce new kids to Pokemon, why not have those mechanics? Sword and Shield, released the next year, had them, and little kids who liked Let's Go would have likely picked those up and been confused by the addition of 2 huge mechanics. So I really don't understand the decision to remove abilities and held items. Now, part of what makes the region of Kanto so great is the sense of adventure that it instills. It has the nice feel of a classic RPG, one that slowly unlocks as you complete more and more of the game. And because the region opens up rather slowly, you're never super overwhelmed by all the new stuff to do. With that being said, Game Freak had zero faith in players for the Let's Go games, as at almost every possible moment you're told what to do and where to go. After you beat Lieutenant Surge, Misty shows up and tells you to go through Diglett's tunnel. After going through Diglett's tunnel, one of Professor Oak's aides ushers you inside to give you the secret technique for Light Up. Immediately after getting Light Up, your rival takes you east of Cerulean City and tells you that there's some place to use a Light Up over there. After encountering the ghosts in Pokemon Tower, a cutscene with Jesse and James tells the player to go to the Rocket Game Corner and Celadon City. Then after defeating Blaine, your rival tells you to go check out the gym in Viridian City. Nothing feels like an adventure anymore. You can't even go through Diglett's tunnel until you defeat Lieutenant Surge, and you can't enter the Rocket Hideout until you enter Pokemon Tower. Honestly, the only things the game lets you figure out on your own is the process of unlocking Cinnabar Island's gym and encountering the legendary birds. Not only is there no feeling of adventure, but your character is just treated like a dumb baby. Before entering Rock Tunnel for the first time, you're ambushed by Rocket Grunts, only for Lorelei to come and save your hide. Then there's the character of Blue, Oak's grandson. He's actually not your rival in this game, that's Trace, and just serves as an odd mentor character. But what really blows is that it's Blue's plan for you to take down Team Rocket at Silph Co. In Red and Blue and Fire Red and Leaf Green, it's pretty cool that the player just kinda takes down a massive gang on their own without really being told what to do. But the Let's Go games ruin this by having Blue ask the player, "Please take down Team Rocket." The point of Pokemon games is to become this kick-ass 10-year-old Pokemon trainer who can pretty much do anything. So when you're being saved by Lorelei or bossed around by Blue, who was both just a random guy guy and not even that cool. It's frustrating because you know you could be doing this on your own. Speaking of Blue, he is a great rival in Red and Blue and Fire Red and Leaf Green. He's this cocky, arrogant little snot-nosed brat. He shows up when you least expect it, always seems to be one step ahead of you, says smell you later, and walks like a jabroni. However, due to all this, it is incredibly cathartic when you beat him. By him being this downright jerk, you're given the perfect motivation for training strong Pokemon. If nothing else, you want to be stronger than your rival. And so when you learn that he became the champion mere seconds before you beat Lance, it's the perfect setup for a beautiful final battle. Embarrassing him by stripping him of his title of champion moments after he earned it is the best feeling. Trace, on the other hand, is a wishy-washy baby man who's nice to you, tells you where to go, helps you fight Team Rocket, and gives you items. What this makes is a good side character, but not a good rival. And I'm not saying this to say that kids are too soft nowadays, I'm saying this because I know that kids nowadays could handle a mean rival. I ended up hating Trace because he was such a loser. I wanted to kick his ass during the championship fight because I didn't want someone this intolerable to be seen as the most powerful trainer in Kanto. And before I get into the other changes these games made, I want to address two little things I found odd. After becoming the champion, you get to fly around on Charizard, Aerodactyl, and Dragonite. This is cool and all, but in order to get off them, you have to go into your menu and put them back in their Pokeball. Why is there not just a button on the controller that does this for you? You can't even fly over every gate, so you'll have to pause, put away your Charizard, go through the gate, take out your Charizard, and continue flying. Why can't the entire region be loaded in at once? This game isn't graphically demanding. Why have this really cool mechanic be ruined by the technical limitations of the game? Also, there are no HMs in this game. Thank God. They've all been replaced with secret techniques that your buddy, either Pikachu or Eevee, can learn. This is really great and all, but why do the trees for cut regrow? You'll literally always have the move for it, so why do I have to cut down a tree every time I re-enter an area? And why isn't strength active all the time? Why do I need to manually activate it every time I enter an area? I always have the move with me and always want to have the option to move rocks. And don't give me that, well, it's so you don't accidentally move the rocks either. I need to push A to move the rocks. I won't be doing it accidentally. Why doesn't Flash come on automatically? Why would I choose to go through Rock Tunnel in the dark? Why can't I just run up to the water and immediately surf without going through the menu? Even if I didn't mean to enter the water, it's no big deal to just hop off. Why do the trees regrow? It's such a painful act of ignorance on Game Freak's part. Clearly the secret techniques were introduced to remove the tedium of HMs. So why do I have to cut the same tree multiple times? This baby game got me more pressed than any game in recent memory. With those rants out of the way, let's get into the other changes the Let's Go games made. The Sevi Islands aren't in these games. It's really disappointing because there just isn't that much to do in Continental Kanto. I would have loved to have been able to catch Johto or Hoenn Pokemon down in the Sevi Islands. Why not either introduce another post-game area or just revisit other regions? Like, we've seen Kanto before. 4 times! The whole point of the game is to catch Pokemon, so why not have Pokemon from different regions as well? Is it because the original 151 Pokemon are the most recognizable? Probably. Is it also because Game Freak clearly doesn't care about Pokemon? Probably. Instead of the Sevi Islands, what we get are the Master Trainers. These trainers specialize in one of the 151 Kanto Pokemon, as well as Meltan and Melmetal. You can only fight them with the species of Pokemon that they specialize in. However, these are more annoying than they are fun due to how tedious they are. Even though making your Pokemon dummy strong is dummy fun, it takes so long to get your Pokemon to the appropriate level. Master Trainers Pokemon range from level 65 to level 80. You'll need to get millions of experience if you want all your Pokemon to be equal level to the Master Trainers. And that's not even mentioning that you'll need to get your Ditto and Legendary Pokemon CP stupid high. You'll be catching Chanseys for a year before you complete all 153 Master Trainers. The point I'm making is that the Master Trainers feel like padding. A battle tower would have just been cooler. The Safari Zone isn't in these games either. It's been replaced with the Go Park, where you can trade your Pokemon from Pokemon Go to these games. Yeah, it's cool, but having a proper Safari Zone would have been perfect considering the game's emphasis on catching Pokemon. Lastly, you can't play any games at the Celadon Game Corner. Look, I know that teaching kids about gambling is wrong, and that playing the slots at the Viewstone Game Corner when I was 7 definitely gave me a gambling addiction, but from the way the NPCs at the Game Corner act, these games are much more like arcade games than slot machines. Why couldn't there just be like 3 or 4 minigames that you play and win coins? It's just so lame that the reason you can't play is because the Game Corner is out of coins. Like, come on, there's a clear workaround here. And while I could go on and on about other little differences, like being able to play with your partner Pokemon, the absence of the bicycle, your Pokemon being able to tank hits if they like you enough, the inclusion of Mega Evolutions, and Jesse and James being seeing here, I don't want this video to be an hour long. They're all innocent enough and are simply minor changes that don't do anything on their own to alter the heart of the game. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are very odd remakes of Red and Blue. Clearly meant for a younger generation, these games have zero faith in the ability of children and don't even properly set them up to play future Pokemon games. Their emphasis on catching Pokemon is a thankful return to form that Sword and Shield would continue with the wild area, but they still hold on to this seemingly outdated idea of trading Pokemon. The Sevi Islands, the Safari Zone, and the games at the Game Corner were all removed, being replaced by the boring Master Trainers. Catching Pokemon in these games is fun, but the enjoyment from battling is at an all-time low. It lacks the spirit of adventure that makes Pokemon games wondrous in the first place. Having previously hard to obtain Pokemon spawn in random areas is a fun take on the idea that rare Pokemon could be everywhere, but always being told where to go makes you feel like a tourist instead of an adventurer. But there you have it. What started as simply an RPG with a fun gimmick became the largest media franchise in history. The original games were lovingly remade in 2004, adding additional content by way of the Sevi Islands in a way that masterfully left Kanto intact. And even though there exist several odd hand-holdy things, Fire Red and Leaf Green remain some of the most authentic Pokemon games out there due to how faithfully they recreated the original experience. Then in 2018, the games were remade again, this time to introduce a younger generation into the world of Pokemon. However, it changed much of the heart that Red and Blue and Fire Red and Leaf Green had by turning the once semi-open region into a series of breadcrumb-laden cutscenes, and didn't add on to the post-game in the way that the latter did. Why they were made in the first place eludes me, but to call them cash grabs rushed out the door because Pokemon has to be an annual series for some reason doesn't seem like that much of a stretch. Despite everything I've said in this video, I still had a lot of fun going through these games because I do really like Pokemon. For as much as I tore into the two remakes, I still enjoyed playing them. And I'm glad to have finally put into words how I perceive the original Pokemon games. But let me know what you think. Was I on the money or did I completely miss the point? With something this subjective, I'm very interested in hearing different perspectives. Take care.